Hello! In this video, we will do a deep dive into metric visualizations in Kibana. We will challenge ourselves to create a project health dashboard using only metric visualizations. Metrics are a simple but powerful tool for filtering and displaying data. They can display a static text or number value, show you information from a previous point in time, change color if a value falls within a specified range, include simple formulas to create new fields, and include a graphic underlay to see historic data relating to a value. Let's get started. Within our homepage, we can click on the top left menu icon and click on Dashboards. Within the Dashboards menu, we will click on Create Dashboard. This takes us to the dashboard interface. Right now we have nothing in there. Let's add our first visualization. We're going to click on Create Visualization, and we're going to select the type of visualization to be a metric. We are already in the Revit event data view, so that's good. And in this case, we want to have, let's start with the project name. So I can look for the field project name and simply drag it as the primary metric. As you can see, it populated to be unique counter project name. So what this is giving us right now is how many unique projects we have interacted with over the last year. For the sake of a model health dashboard, we will use the last value. So this is giving us the most recent value of project name. Let's give it a cleaner name. Project name. And simple as that, we've created the visualization. However, I do want to add another filter so that we're only including documents recorded during save, sync, and open times. We can add a filter in here. Select action.name is one of save, sync, and open times. We'll add this filter, and you'll see no change in this metric, but this is important for the other values that we're going to be collected because not all values are collected during all actions you take in Revit, but during save, sync, and open events, we're collecting several documents related to Revit model health. We can save and return, and this automatically adds our metric into the dashboard. We can scale it to fill the page, and we can add another metric. We could either create the visualization and add it in the same way, or I can actually duplicate this metric so that I can keep the filters I've created before. I'll click on Edit Visualization, and now I get a simpler UI for editing this visualization. If I go into Edit in Lens, I'll see the original UI that I was presented with before. So in this case, we have the project name, and now I want the file name. Previously, we selected the field from the left-hand column and dragged it over. We could also click on the primary metric and find the field here. So I can type in file.name. We'll leave it as last value, and now we're getting the file name of that Revit file. Don't forget to change the name on the appearance for file name. We can close, save, and return, and we now have the file name for that project. Now, you'll notice that we're only seeing this one project, and this is because this is the last project that was open across my organization. What we can do is add a control so we can filter for a single Revit file. If you click on the controls button, select add control, we'll stay within the data view that we're using for our visualizations, and we'll find the file.name value, and we'll save it. This creates a control that will act as a filter for you to engage with your data. If you click on the drop-down menu, I can select the project, and now the data will be filtering just to show information related to that project. Further, I can click on this edit button and choose some options such as expand width to fit available space, which will make it fill the entire window. And in this case, because it's a Revit model health dashboard, I'm only going to allow a single selection. I can also change the appearance of the label to file name. Let's save it. Now let's see when this Revit file was last opened. We can again duplicate this metric visualization, click on edit, go to edit in Lens, and for the primary metric, I will now select the timestamp. And now we're seeing the last timestamp. However, we do want to see when this file was last opened. But we're looking at documents from saved, sync, and open events. We can filter for open events in one of two ways. We can either edit this filter so that it excludes save and sync events, Or we can click on the advanced options within the primary metric on filter by, and we can add a filter for action name is open. When we're done, we can click on save and return, and we'll see the metric added to our dashboard. Now let's add a metric to see what Revit version this file is in. Let's duplicate one of our metrics. Click on edit, edit in lens, and for primary metric, we can look for a field relating to version. We can get software version and change the title. We'll save and return, and we can add this to our dashboard. So far, we've only created metrics that show text values. I actually want to create one that gives us the file size of this model. So we can duplicate the metric again, edit the visualization, edit in lens. And you notice that each time we're duplicating it, we're keeping the filters. So we're still only seeing data from saved, sync, and open events. Now we want to change the primary metric from software version to a field related to file size. If I look for file size, we can look at file.size. And again, we're sticking to the last value. So now we're seeing the file size in megabytes, and I want the name to reflect that. File size in megabytes. We can close, save and return. And again, you'll see this visual added to our dashboard. Now, I want to show you some of the more advanced tools that you can do with metrics. For example, what if we want to see what the file size was a week ago so we can see that change over time? You can do that by, we'll duplicate this dashboard. Again, edit the field, go to edit and lens. And when we click on the primary metric, under the advanced options, we can see a value called time shift. So in this case, I'll set the time shift to a week ago. And now it's showing me what the file size was last week. I can, again, edit the name to reflect the new value. Or I can add it as a subtitle to call it file size 1 week ago. You can click save and return, and now we're seeing this on our dashboard. Finally, I can also use a formula to show the difference in file size between today and a week ago. We'll do this again by duplicating the metric visualization. We'll edit it. And in this case, instead of using one of the quick functions to get a value, we'll use the formula. We can see that Kibana has already auto-created a formula based on the quick function we had selected. In this case, we're looking at the last value of the file size field. It added a filter to only show me values when file size exists, and it included the time shift of 1 week. Let's see what that looks like for the file size. So if I click on Edit Visualization, and I go into Formula, I can see that we're seeing the last value of file size only when file size exists, and we're not having the time shift. A neat trick you can do is simply to copy the formula from one visualization, and then paste it into the formula for another to create a new value. So in this case, we'll go back to formula and see what the value was a week ago. And I can add the value from today and subtract it from the value a week ago. So now we're seeing the change in the file size from a week ago to today. Let's change the name to reflect that. Change in file size. And we'll change the subtitle to over 1 week. Apply and close. Another thing you can do with metrics is to change the color depending on the value. So if we go back to this metric visualization, click on the primary metric, you can see that the color by value is currently set to static. We can set that to dynamic, and we're presented with a color mapping option. If we click on Edit Colors, we can see that if the file size has increased by more than 7, it's going to be yellow. And if it's increased by more than 14, it's going to be red. We actually want to mess with these numbers so that if the file size increases by an acceptable range, it'll be green. But if it increases by a non-acceptable range, it'll be red. We can apply and close the changes. So now we have a quick overview of our Revit project when it was last opened, the file version, the file size today, the file size a week ago, and the change in file size over time. Let's look at how many warnings there are in this file. I can again duplicate this metric, click on Edit, Edit in Lens, and for the primary metric, we'll go to warning.count, and again, choose the last value. We can say number of warnings. So we can see that this project has 823 warnings. We can actually add some more information here by using the secondary metric. So in this case, if we want to see the number of warnings, but we also want to see the number of elements in the file, we can add another field here. To get the number of elements in a file, there's a field called project.instancesCount, which is now showing me how many instances there are in the project. We'll switch it to last value and say elements in file. Close, refresh, and we'll save and return. So now we're seeing in the same metric visualization the number of warnings, and for some context, we're also seeing how many elements there are in the file. Now, similar to how we created the formula to see the change in file size over 1 week, we can actually see how many numbers there are per elements in the file. Again, let's duplicate one of our visualizations. We'll drag it off to the side. We'll edit it. And in this case, we want to create a metric that shows us the ratio of how many warnings there are per elements in the file. So we can select the field for project.instancesCount to get the number of elements that are currently in the file. There's just 39,000 as reflected by the secondary metric in this visualization. And we can look at the formula to confirm that we're getting the last value of project.instancesCount when project.instancesCount exists. I'll apply and close for now so I can go back to this visualization and simply copy the formula for the warning count. So I'll press Ctrl+C to copy, back. I'll cancel out of it, go back into this metric and I'll edit it, go into my primary metric, click on formula, and so now I can Ctrl+V to paste and divide. So now I'm dividing the last value of warning count by the last value of project instances count. You can see that this ratio is very small. So in this case, I can actually multiply the whole result by 1,000. So I can see how many warnings there are per 1,000 elements in the file. Let's change the name to reflect that. Warnings per 1,000 elements. Apply and close. So now we've seen how to create static values, how to create values showing a difference over time, and how to use a formula to create brand new fields from 2 values. Now, similar to the change in file size, let's color code the warnings per 1,000 elements. I can click on the Edit Visualization, click on the primary metric, on the color by value, we'll set it to dynamic, and then choose the thresholds for the acceptable range of warnings per elements. So in this case, if I have less than 2 warnings per 1,000 elements, I'll consider that to be good. But if I have over 10, I'll consider that to be red, and this project needs additional attention. I can press back, apply and close. Now, metrics have a few quirks to them. For example, if I want to color code the file size, you'll notice that I'm not seeing an option for dynamic color range. This is because I'm using the quick function last value. The trick here is to switch to a formula, which now allows me to select the dynamic color by value option. I can now give a range for the file size, and I can apply and close. Similarly, sometimes you can overlay additional information on a metric. So again, let's click on the file size, and we can see that in this case it says supporting visualization type, none, line, or bar. Let's click on line. Now we're seeing a line chart showing the change in file size over time. You can click on back, apply and close. Let's say I want to do the same for number of warnings. Similar to the color, I am not seeing this option because I'm using the quick function. The workaround again is to simply click on the formula, which is giving me the last value of the warning count, and I'm now seeing the option for the supporting visualization. You can click on line, back, apply and close, and I can see a chart of the number of warnings in the file over time. Once we're happy with our dashboard, we can click on save, give it a name, metric model health, and save it. This wraps up metric visualizations in Kibana. Mastering metric visualizations lays the groundwork for every other lens view, tables, graphs, and dashboards, because the same filters and formula tools carry straight across. Every firm's data questions are different, but with these basics, you can design visuals that answer yours. Hit us up on the forum if you get stuck, share what you build, or suggest what the next tutorial should be. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but please subscribe to our channel if you want to learn more. Thank you.